This is Li Sao, the longest poem in China and the hardest to memorize. It's massive, full of rare words and in old-fashioned language. And I had to memorize it in high school. That might make it sound like I have a pretty good memory, but I actually don't. I was just another student struggling and feeling tortured by how much I had to memorize. But once I learned the right memory techniques, it became way faster and easier. Now I've used to memorize thousands of history facts, hundreds of poems, and over 10,000 English vocab words. These skills later helped me thrive at an Ivy League school in a second language. In this video, I will share 6 steps to memorize any long text quickly. These steps are easy to start using right away, but the last one is especially important because it ties everything together, and without it, the other steps won't work. I can't play with you right now. A quick note, I don't recommend memorizing the longest poems just for the sake of it. It's probably better to spend that time analyzing the material or even try writing your own poem with what you learn from it. But the skill of being able to memorize a long text really fast is incredibly useful, like medical students presenting a patient, lawyers memorizing arguments or contracts. So with that in mind, let's dive into how I memorized Li Sao. So Li Sao is this huge poem. It's quite overwhelming just by even looking at it. So the first step I do is to break it into manageable little chunks and memorize these individually. Like actors are given scripts that have chapters and scenes in it, which are pre-chunked for them to help them memorize. Your brain can only hold about 4 to 7 items in your working memory. If you try to memorize a whole page, it overloads immediately. But if you reduce it into smaller, like labeled units or chunks, it frees us brain power and makes recall way faster. It's the same reason you remember a phone number as 123 456 7890 instead of the all 10 digits altogether. So after looking at this really long poem, what I usually do is I would break them into small chunks and then copy and paste each one of them into like a separate page. And the second step, what I do is to understand what each sentence means. Don't start memorize until you understand it. You know, because right now this paragraphs just means nonsense to me. It probably means nonsense to you as well, but it's written in old ancient Chinese language. If I don't translate the meaning into my own words, there's no way I can remember it. So for this sentence, 常态息 means long signs. 以眼涕息 means to cover or wipe tears. 爱民生之多艰 means grieve the hardships of people's lives. So after I understand each individual word's meaning, this whole sentence means I heave long sighs and wipe away my tears, grieving the many hardships of human life. Again, still a little bit abstract. That's why I need to connect it to the background of why Qu Yuan wrote this poem. Like, what was he thinking when he's writing it? Because he saw the corruption of the royal court at the time, and all the citizens and just ordinary people are suffering, and he felt so powerless to change that or make a difference. That's why he's signing, he's crying, and he has this like deep compassion for the people that are suffering. Memory clings to meanings, not random noises. If you try to memorize lines that you don't even understand, your brain just treats it like random syllables. But when you understand it, you create connections, causes, effects, metaphors, and basically you give those words like a pathway to connect to your brains and into your long-term memory. And studies has shown that students who actually understand the concept memorize formulas way faster than those who try to use rote memorization, which is just like repeat it over and over again without understand what it means. For example, for lawyers or anyone who is preparing for a debate, when they forget what are they trying to say for the next part, they think back to what is the background, like what is the meaning, why am I delivering this message in the first place. It's just much easier to recall it if you remember why you're saying it. A quick side note, if you're a student, I have something for you. You should go take this quick quiz so you can find the best method to your specific academic goals and current challenges. On top of that, you will also get a free ebook on study methods. It has 10 research-proven methods to help you study smarter and faster. Each come with very clear steps and guidance on how to use them and when to use them. The guide is completely free and it's by Paperlike, which is also the awesome sponsor of this video. If you followed me for a while, you will know that I'm such a big fan of Paperlike. I love my iPad. Back in college, I basically use my iPad to do all the studying, note-taking, memorizing, practice exams. I honestly think it's the most valuable and worthwhile study equipment that I have invested in my whole life. My only issue was that when I write on the iPad glass screen, it was a little bit weird initially because it's very different from how I usually write on real papers with pens. And I really miss that feeling. That's why I was super excited to discover Paperlike screen protector. It makes writing on iPad feels like a real paper. And back in the day, sometimes for an exam, I had to study for more than 10 hours. So comfort really matters. And Paperlike's note-taking collections was really awesome because they have this pencil grip, ergonomically designed to make writing more comfortable, plus a cleaning kit to keep your iPad spotless. You can spray it and then clean it. Super convenient. Right now they're offering 50% off on every product on top of the screen protector. So I highly recommend go check out Paperlike and definitely go download their free ebook on study methods. And thank you so much Paperlike for sponsoring this video. The next step is to visualize them. So now I understand what that sentence means. I can actually picture it, use my imagination. And there are so many good AI tools to help you do this. You know, I can see this man signing and wiping his tears, and the reason is clear because he is sad, he is grieving the hardships of human life. You know, these people at the time, they're starving, they're sick, they're struggling. So next time when I'm trying to memorize that sentence, those images will help me to recall it. Because our brain's visual cortex is massive, much larger than the area for language. A huge part of our brain is just for us to see. And the weirder and more vivid of the image, the easier for your brain to flag that as something important. That's why you forget boring text, but like a very bizarre movie scene, you will remember that forever. Med students need to memorize like long paragraphs to present a patient to their attending physician. You know, this include all the patient information like their height, weight, age, blood pressure, medical history, family history, current sickness, why are they sick, and all the potential treatments. Tons of information. And one important techniques professor teach them to do is instead of just trying to remember the presentation, you should really visualize the patient, what they look like, how they act, and their overall condition. Like by connecting those information with the actual vivid mental image, it becomes much more easier to recall those information during presentation. The next step is very fun, and it's actually the only reason that I'm able to still remember this long poem after 8 years. Because at the time, I'm trying to memorize this poem, and then I went online, I googled, and I found a song for this poem. And back then, I was listening to it whenever I get a chance. I was listening to it while walking back home, while doing my dishes, and it was so effective. It's really ridiculous because I genuinely feel like this is such a cheat code for memorization, because after just like listening to it, it really stuck into my head. And it was crazy for me when I first came up with this video concept. I was like, I can still sing it. Because our brains love the patterns, you know, rhythm and melody really helps information to stick in your brain. And that's why a lot of some lyrics, you remember them even though you never try to memorize them. And your brain uses the rhythms to predict what's coming next. And scientists shows that pitch, stress, and rhythm give extra cues that plain text just doesn't. So if you can hum something, you can remember it. I do understand because of this is a very famous poem, there is even the music made for it, but not all the stuff that you need to memorize have a music. So one of the silly way you can use this trick is to take one of your favorite songs, or like a song that you're really familiar with, and try fitting your speech or the text that you try to memorize into the melody, like record it, and then now you can just listen to it over and over again. And it doesn't have to be great music, just something you can hum and help you memorize. Next step. Now that I understand the meaning, I have the images in my head, I even listen to a song song about this. The next step I did is to speak out loud and see if I can memorize this thing. I will also try to write it down without looking at the original poem and really try to recall it at the time. If anything I can't remember, I will correct it later. So everybody should always practice your speech a couple times before you deliver it. The key to memorization is to actively recall it. Because when you try to recall information without looking, every time, no matter whether you succeed or you fail, then correct yourself later, your brain strengthens that neural pathway. This is one of the most powerful ways to have your learning stick. And the last step is the most important. If I skip this, honestly, everything I've done so far won't work, because even if we can memorize something really quickly, our brain will still naturally drop information over time, aka will still forget it. That's why at the time I had to test myself multiple times to see how well I memorize each chunk. And the chunk, or like the section that I know really well, I barely made any mistakes, I will revisit it later. And the sections or the chunks that I really struggled for when I read it, there were lots of gaps that I don't know, made lots of mistakes, I review it again. Because this forgetting curve discovered by Ebbinghaus shows that recall drops pretty quickly at first, but then more slowly over time. So by spacing reviews right before you about to forget, you interrupt this curve and push the memory deeper. And each review take less effort and you make the memory longer. After like 4 or 5 reviews, most of the cases, the recall can almost become permanent. The key is you have to repeat. Repetition is the only way you can memorize something longer, long term. And by taking advantage of this forgetting curve, you review it in like a little intervals, you will save more time. I actually made another video. It's a deep dive on the science behind how to memorize things fast and a bunch of neuroscience on how our memory and forgetting works. It covers a lot of the strategies we talked about and why they work. So go check it out there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.